Hey, Control Bite and Tomato, how's it going? I am back, but also not only am I back, but I actually was on yesterday for a little bit, even though I don't normally stream on Saturdays. So, no, I just moved the microphone closer to me. I've always had one of these cool little Blue Yeti microphones. I just always kind of left it over to the side, like over here, and it was down. But I just got some people asking on the YouTube side if I had they're like, oh, can you work on sound? And I said, yeah, I got the microphone right here. I got the little pop protector on it, right? So I was like, oh, okay, I'll move it closer so people can hear better, I guess. I didn't realize sound was that bad, but yeah. So what happened, Control Bite, if you haven't heard or hadn't seen much in the Discord, kind of the whole time I was gone in Mexico, YouTube was kind of blowing up. In fact, I have more subscribers over on YouTube than I do on likes and follows on Twitch here. So, I mean, technically, YouTube is a much huger, like much deeper waters than Twitch, obviously. Plus, Twitch, like you only get active on your videos when you're live. YouTube is all the time. I have like 60,000 views on that one video now. So it's like, it's wild. But anyways, we're going to do labs. We do labs on Sundays, guys. And I'm kind of going with the titles now, beginner to enterprise, because it doesn't matter if we become experts. I had beginner to expert. Being an expert's not that important. Being able to do it for an enterprise is. So we all start as beginners and then we move on to wherever we are, whatever level of expertise we have. But I'm just kind of calling it beginner to enterprise. Today is going to start over in Ansible. We did, right before I left for vacation, I think we did the first 8 labs, so people can go look those up if they want. But we're going to start in, I'd say this is going to look a little less beginner, but it's still going to be simple. Mr. Mac, I've always had this microphone. This is the same microphone I've been using for years. I just moved it closer to my face. So, yeah, it's a cool little Blue Yeti one. If you guys have never used these, I used to use these for the college. They are, they're surprisingly crisp for a whole classroom of students. So, yeah, no, I've always had this mic, though. It's a little $120. Maybe I got it on sale for like $100 type mic. But I've had this forever. It sat over like about a foot away from me. And I guess people prefer it to be like right in my mouth so I can do like ASMR or whatever. So, all right. So we're going to do some Ansible today. And I'm going to jump. I'm not going to just use the book. I'm going to jump to some other labs that we have. So if people are kind of wanting to do those with me, they can as well. And then other than that, we will, I don't know, just see where we get to. So Ansible, Linux, and I don't know, whatever else kind of pops up. Probably next week sometime I'll do a stream where I just kind of hang out and show you guys like what happened in Mexico and stuff, like the wrestling part of the trip and then like the vacation part of the trip, because there were 2 parts. Also, we were doing a fight camp for one of my friend's wives, and then she just won her fight last night in MMA. She's now 3-0 in MMA fights, all by subs. So, because we're wrestlers, so, you sub people out. All right, anyways, so in our labs here, we're in the book over here on the right, and then over here on the left, we're going to go down to API calls and debugging the variables. So we're going to look at how an API call works with Ansible, and then we'll go and we'll do some other, I'll show you a couple of other things that we can do that also, like, you can use Ansible for if you wanted to. So we'll kind of jump to some other labs and stuff. So hopefully, this stuff, I hope it's valuable for you guys. We do labs on Sundays, so we get hands on the keyboard the whole time. That's also another kind of goal on Sundays. It's also Mother's Day, so, make sure you tell your mothers Happy Mother's Day, or the mothers in your lives, all that kind of good stuff. All right, so let's go over here. I'm going to jump this up. It says, welcome to Prolog Ansible. And here's the thing. We're going to do playbook execution to see API call with the URI module. So that's what we're doing. We can cat our root hosts. I got to move this mic a little bit. It's right on my hand. Cat root hosts. There's our 2 servers, right? And then we can cat root API.yaml and see that it's already been written for us. Now, what's it doing? It's got the 3 dashes across the top that tells us that it's a YAML file, right? Also, if you have multiple YAML files, you can keep reading them and keep adding them to the same file if you want to. But here's our name, call API and get results from a web page. That's what we're doing. You can do this is arbitrary. You can put whatever you want here. But I always recommend you do something that's kind of descriptive for you, because if you're in the enterprise and you're doing changes and you're recording your changes in a change management tool, what you name things becomes a matter of record, and it becomes very useful and very kind of simple for you to push this up. When this is done running, I can grab it all and go throw it in my change management record and say, there we go, management. I've successfully closed out my change. I've put in everything that I did, because it's all these declarative steps of what I'm doing inside of my tool. I watched it all work. I gave it the thumbs up, and then I tell you guys all the time, but I run these things and I watch Netflix while they run across however many servers, right? In this case, we're not actually we're using a special, you can always in Ansible hit the local host, whether you have an inventory defined or not. So in this one, strictly speaking, the inventory doesn't matter. We could use any inventory. We could even use the default inventory in Ansible. We don't have to use root hosts to call local host. You could do that from any inventory file. All right. We don't have any special variables. We are going to gather facts. We're not going to become root because we're never leaving this device. So using the URI module to access all those libraries and stuff doesn't require sudo permissions. So we're not going to become or use any type of sudo method. So we're good. Here's our tasks. Our tasks are defined as each individual list item here inside of YAML. And the first one is, here's an arbitrary name, pulling Swappy to get results from a web page. Swappy is the Star Wars API. It tends to be something very easy for people to understand. If you go click on it, it just tells you like, hey, this is Star Wars things. This is what our data looks like when it's returned in JSON format, right? So JSON or JSON, whatever you want to call that. It gives us the fact that there's 82 of them. It's going to give them to us 10 at a time. It's going to give that to us 10 at a time. And here's what it looks like. And it also tells us here's the next page. That's the next page there. All right. Gives us a bunch of information. There's always a key value pair hierarchy in JSON, or it's a list, or a list of items underneath. So like here in the case of name, it's Luke Skywalker. Height is 172, whatever. Hey Yash, how's it going? Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. We are doing labs today. So if you want to hang out and do labs with us. I didn't even link this lab for today. So here's the lab that we're doing. Let me put it on the YouTube side, and then I'll also pin it over here on the Twitch side. I don't know about any pinning function on YouTube, so for people watching YouTube, I guess you just kind of grab it out of the chat if you want to go to it. But this is the lab that we're doing. Here's the information over on the right. This is also, we have a book, right? The book's over there on LeanPub if anybody wants it. And I say create a playbook that calls from the Star Wars API via the URI method, or the URI module, right? So here's the module, and here's the arguments that are required. The one required argument that I know of is the URL, and that's because, well, we're going to hit a URL of some type, right? And then in our case, we want to return the content as well, so we want to get all this tasty data back out of this, right? We want to get all this data. By the way, here's our key value pairs, and here's a list. So films, this would be films 0, 1, 2, and 3 in JSON, okay? And now this isn't necessarily like a refresher or a class on JSON format, but that's one thing that you should probably spend a little time with, because if you're doing API calls especially, you're going to deal with this a lot. When we go to whatever the name of the variable is, dot results 0, the first result is this one right here, right? So we'll call those here in a little bit, but the point is we can look at them. All right. So then we can debug everything. So we'll take the whole variable and we're going to register it as Swappy. All the data that comes back out, we're going to throw in this variable called Swappy. We call this variable whatever we wanted to. And Ansible will keep it. It'll throw it in its little backpack. And for the rest of the playbook, whatever else we did for the rest of this execution of Ansible, we will have this variable populated with all the data that we got out of that API. Then we can access that data any way we want, but first we're going to look at it. So we're going to look at it here. So we're going to run this playbook. We're going to go and pull that data, and we're going to look at it in the way that Ansible is carrying it in this little backpack, if that makes sense, right? When this is done, then we're going to take this off, and we're going to look at just that one result that I just called out. And we're going to call it like this, swappy.json.results 0. And this will give you this right here, results 0, which is this first right down to here. That'll be result 0. So swappy.json.results 0. So let's go look at that. Let's touch this thing and understand it, because that's really what kind of makes this work. So we're going to run our playbook and just watch it bring out the variable, right? Bring the data back for us. All right. So playbook was good. There's no problems. We don't have anything unreachable or skipped or failed or any of that kind of stuff. So we're good. And this is really, at the end of the day, just a lot of data, right? We want to make sure this is almost like a test for us. Like, did our code work? Did our everything work? But also, if we look at our variable that we're debugging, it's swappy dot JSON dot results, and then whatever results we want in a list format starting at 0, right? So let's see if we can do that. We're going to change this playbook a little bit. We're going to VI our root, API.yaml. I need to fix my keyboard here. Hold on. Whenever I move this microphone over, the cord comes with it, right? Because it's a USB microphone, and then my hand sits weird on my keyboard so it's kind of causing me a little bit of an annoyance, and I didn't realize it even bugged me until right now. All right, that should be better. It was just like right at the corner of my hand, and it was bugging me. So all right, we're gonna take this. We're gonna come down here, and if you're not familiar with VI, you're just gonna hit X, X, X. You don't even have to leave command mode. You can stay in command mode. If alternatively you did want to leave command mode, you would just hit I to go to insert, and then you would just back it out, right? I mean, do whatever you want. That would be a backspace. As long as you have lined these up properly, you're not going to have any problems. Boom arm clamps are handy. Control byte, that is actually something that may be coming in the future. If I showed you guys my desk, I have this big giant desk from DeVry that I bought many years ago before I even started teaching there. And it doesn't work well with those concepts. So I will probably do like a boom arm eventually, but maybe when I get like a Secret Labs desk. Because, by the way, the other reason I don't want to give this desk up is it's so big. It's like I can barely reach to the back of my desk. How would we iterate through each record and append to a file? Never seen Ansible used in this way. Psi Gamma, you could do a lot of stuff. We could write this out to a file. Yeah, let's play with that here in a minute. But yeah, we would use a JSON template for that, most likely. And we would just write out as a template file and then have it iterate over each of them. Yeah, that would be, I think, let me play with that here in a minute, and we'll see if we can't do that. But yeah, we could write these to a file if we wanted to. Psi Gamma, I use this a lot to pull stuff out of satellite and feed it down into my Ansible inventories. So yeah, this is very powerful. I'm a big fan of, like, if I can get the data, I can do something with the data. And I tell you guys all the time, I'm not like some professional programmer. That's not what I do. I'm not a data analyst. I don't pull down data in pipelines and stuff, but I can work stuff through to make it work for me as a professional, engineer. So yeah, let's look at this a little bit. Let's play with this. I'm gonna comment this one out just because it's gonna bug me. So if you do need to comment that one out, you're gonna hit I to go to insert mode, and then you're gonna be in insert mode down at the bottom. And then once you've got that like you like it, you hit escape :WQ, which will quit the file. Guys, I already know somebody's thinking it. There's like 30 ways to leave VI. I don't know them all. I use the one that works for me. So escape :WQ. If you just do W, it'll write the file, and then you can just do :Q and it'll leave, right? I can cat that file to make sure it, whoops, if I can get my hand in the right place, root API.yaml. It'll look like what I want it to. All I did was put the comments up here and then take this out. Everything needs to be lined up. Ansible's very, very, very finicky about its YAML. Well, YAML in general is discipline and bondage, right? Like, you have to have your stuff there. I had a boss that used to always say that about YAML. It's he used to say it about Python too, because you also care about the indents in Python, right? And YAML, by the way, everything that we do inside of Ansible is Python. It's under the hood. It's all Python. So, all right. So let's run this one again. Let's look at how this differs, because we're only going to look at that one thing, right? And here's my little data right there. Boom. All right. So So let's go, instead of me writing something, I'm going to steal from myself. This also comes from a lab that is the lab before this. So I'm going to go look at Ansible Ginger reporting. And let's say I wanted to report this out. I'm going to go steal this little template for myself. So this template right here is a way that we loop over things. So it's in one of the other labs if you guys want it. But I'm just going to VI, let's just call it API.j2, and this will be our Ginger. We'll do root API.j2, right? And I'm just going to drop this Ginger template here, right? So this Ginger template is trying to do something else for us, and this other thing it's trying to do for us is not super useful. So I'm just going to hit D. I'm going to do a bunch of Ds. You could also do like D500D, and it would delete 500 lines in a row. But now I've got to loop over some variable. So do we remember the name of the variable? Because I don't, but I see it down there. So I'm going to say for, let's say record, because we can use anything we want, in, let's say swappy.json.results. So now this is going to iterate over all the records in there starting at 0. And then I'm not going to make this distinction of an if and an end if. I'm just going to loop over, and I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say, for each of those, I'll say, maybe let's say name is equal to, and then we're going to go record dot name. I think that should work, right? And what that would do then, and you might say, wait a minute, Scott, hold on a second. Record's not a real thing. Well, when you loop over things in Jinja, the way this kind of works is this swappy.json.results, we are going to count over each record in it. And when we basically drop into, if you want to think of it like the counting variable, now record, as we go through our looping, is going to be, this record right here is basically swappy.json.results 0 whatever dot name. So let's say I don't know, we'll just try this and let's see if we can get all the names. Let's see if we can just get all the names out real quick. All right, so we'll right quit that, and then we've got to now steal one other thing from ourselves, right? Again, we're stealing stuff from ourselves. root.api.yaml. For anybody that's like, God, Scott, you went way afield, you are not on the lab anymore. You're right, but I was answering a question of how do we iterate through these items and then get them to come out to a file. So now down here, I'm gonna have to, name and say, I don't know, place data into a file so we can use it later, right? If we just wanted to pull all this data out. Now this is gonna be a template, and then the source of the template is gonna be that Jinja template. So it's gonna be root api.j2, and then destination is for us gonna be just root dot, I don't know, let's call it swappy dot output or something like that. Swappy underscore output, it doesn't matter, dot text. It doesn't matter, right? Linux literally does not care what's at the end of a file. That we only put that for like the coloring stuff in LS, and when we want to take stuff out and give it to our bosses or our, management type entities that we work with. But as an engineer and being in Linux, we do not care what's at the end of the file. It doesn't matter to us. Hey, Mad P over on the YouTube side. I can see you guys. I am responding, by the way. This is live. So somebody was saying yesterday, like, oh man, this guy's responding. I'm like, well, I'm here. It's only when I look up to see the Twitch or the YouTube side of things. But Mad P, if you got a question, go ahead and ask it. Otherwise, so let's see if we can get this to come out. So, and this may break fantastically, but we'll see where it breaks, right? And if it does break fantastically, then we'll go look at it. So place the data in a file. So let's go look at the swappy output.txt. And there it goes. It counted through all the names and it looped over it. So if you cat the root api.j2, all we did was steal a little of something from ourselves on the other playbook, and that's how we looped over it to get all of the tasty data out. Now, you might say, well, could you add, yeah, so this is something I do. I mean, I've never done it exactly like this, but this is something I do when I generate. I tell you guys that I generate like inventories every day, and I do it out of tools like XCat, or I do it out of Satellite, and you might say, well, Scott, why do you have to generate the inventory daily? Because I want to know if something changed in my environment. So every day I generate a new one, and then I stamp it back to the day's date, and then the daily inventory rolls forward as like a kind of like a scratch space, and then it stamps every day with the name. So if I ever need to diff between today and 2 weeks ago, I can tell you every server that's changed in my environment. And you might say, like, Scott, that doesn't sound like as an engineer that matter. That matters tremendously for the business side of things. And then me as an engineer, my job is just to like facilitate that knowledge up to management. And honestly, like, and I always tell you guys, at the risk of sounding like a Chad, I look like a hero all the effing time because I have this simple information because I do these stupid, simple little things in my environment. And by the way, I didn't have to do anything. I just wrote it once and then I just run it all the time. I just run it daily in a cron job. And people are like, Scott, how do you know this stuff about the environment? Scott knows everything about it. I don't know anything, guys. I could barely remember any of this. You just watched me steal this from myself, right? Because this is over in the last lab. We're in lab 9, but in lab 8 is where we wrote this, right? Where we wrote the loop over stuff in Jinja. So hopefully that works for you. Saigama, if you need this, I'll drop this up in, we've got a Discord, guys, for people that are interested in doing Discord stuff. And I'll go drop this in our Ansible code. I'll say, so we were working on lab 9. Whoops. That's I went too high. I went too high in my thing. Hold on. Let's get back to Discord. So we were working on lab 9 here. So I'm going to grab this. There's lab 9. We found, so I'll say we needed to see if we could report out all of the data into a file, right? For whatever API we hit. This is how we did it, right? So the playbook, and this is the Jinja 2 template, right? And then we go like this, because that makes it a nice little format like that. And then we come up here and we do the playbook, and the playbook will look like this. Root api.yaml, and right. So then if anybody needs this later and you're like, oh man, where did Scott hide that crap? It'll just be up in our Discord for anybody that needs it, right? Boom. So there it is, right? So if you need that, Saigama, for, again, I'm a big fan. Like, I think especially for people that want to be engineers, for people that hang out here with us and go hang out in our Discord and talk shop with us and stuff, and want to be professional engineers and stuff, I think you can do it, one. And two, I definitely think you can do it. You just need to spend time with it. But one is I really think most of you that do this, you like, I don't want to say you like puzzles, because I don't necessarily love puzzles, but what I would say is most of us, if we can see it happen once, we can modify it to be what we need. And I tell you guys, that's what I've seen a lot of people have trouble with tools like Ansible. It's the same thing, like if you go and you try to do a book on like Python or something, they spend like the first 3 chapters setting up your environment, and you're like, oh god. And then if you ever go back to it and the environment's all busted, you're like, I don't even want to mess with that. I think it's the same thing. If you went to this Ansible and none of this crap worked, and then you're just like, well, screw it, I'm not going to use Ansible, I'll just use a bash script. Most of us have been using bash script. I've been using bash scripts for 20 something years in Linux world, right? But Ansible is kind of the more modern way. This is very readable for other people. People can follow along and do work. Like it's easier for you to take, like I just took a vacation to Mexico and I didn't get called once because all of my stuff in Ansible, I think I've done a good job of like getting the other engineers to understand what the processes look like and understand what I was doing so that they can just kind of figure it out quickly and they don't need me. Also, it's funny, I kind of worked myself out of a job because I'm a I work for a company called Redline, and then I contract out to different government and college entities, for high performance compute. And I've worked with these guys for the last year, and I've kind of helped train up their team and restore their team. They were down to 2 people, and now we're back up to like 8. And they can't get the funding to keep me on past the 1-year contract. So it's funny. I mean, I'm going to go to another contract. I'm going to keep doing stuff. But it's funny that I kind of worked myself out of a job. I'm perfectly fine with that, though. Like, if I can step off the boat and everybody can keep it running without me, I think that's I think that means that I did a good job as an engineer. And that's the same kind of way that I look at, working with you guys here. Like, I tell you guys all the time, and you probably think I'm kidding, but you can go ask Pico. You can go ask, like, M-Pesa. You can ask all these guys down in our Discord. I will show people how to do stuff, and maybe I'm the first time they've worked with a tool. But then, like, 2 weeks later, they'll be like, hey, Scott, will you look at this for me? And I'll be like, oh, shit, this guy already knows this thing better than I do. I just know the basics really well, right? So, like, those guys, like, they've run off and done really cool stuff. In fact, they're the 2 major contributors to our Ansible channel, those 2 guys I mentioned. And, yeah, they know Ansible way better than me after, like, 2 weeks. But I'm just the guy that kind of showed people how to do it. Oh, you guys think I'm kidding? I'm not. Like, it's really true. That's how this is. But I tell you guys all the time, I've never very early on in my engineering career, I realized I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I've worked with really, really good, smart engineers over the time. I'm just a guy that's good at building things. So I do simple things well. So that's a goal for me, is like, do simple things well. Show you guys how to do these simple pieces. And again, this is the only reason I'm droning on about this is because Gamma asked, could we do a thing? We figured out, I figured out and made a very simple version of that thing. And I'm pretty sure he could go run off and he or she could probably go and do whatever they need to with it now. And that's kind of like rapid prototype, minimum viable product, these engineering terms that people like to throw around in meetings so they sound smart. Yeah, Het, get her done, Tanis. Yeah. You could call me Het just does it good enough to get by, Tanis. But I tell you guys, like, one of kind of like a mark of pride for me as an engineer is, like, if my name's on something, it works. And that's kind of a thing that, like, I've always tried to cultivate. Like, even if it's not the cleanest looking code or like the cleanest little bash with all my functions nice and stuff, it just tends to work, and it's because I test things. I have a whole testing methodology that I use. I've shown you guys that, and we'll probably go over that again here soon because the YouTube side hasn't heard a lot of that stuff. So, but anyways, we do labs on Sundays, so we're doing labs, and the pinned lab is almost gone on the Twitch side, so we're done with this. And I think if we hit check, it'll say, look at you learning Ansible. You pulled information off an API and looked at JSON objects returned with a debug, and you solved this challenge. So I'm going to link this again real quick. I'm going to link this to you guys on the YouTube side, and I'm going to link to it on the Twitch side again. So there's our lab that we're in. And then I want to kind of challenge you guys a little bit to this stuff over here on the digging deeper. So I'll link in the, here's the Ansible, or here's the digging deeper. The idea of, like, our digging deeper section. So I'm going to pull up my hourglass, and I'm going to put, I will give you guys, I'll put this over here behind me, and I'm going to put on here, I'm going to put 5 minutes on here, and think about the lab, right? And then I'm going to turn myself off, and I want you guys to sit here or listen to the music or read these things and go and figure out if there's anything here that you could modify or change, right? And I know for some of you guys, you're just going to be like, I'm just going to chill for a little bit. I'm not really doing the lab. That's fine. But for people that are doing the lab, spend a little time looking at this. And then we'll go and we'll work on some other labs over here that are going to make this a little more, maybe you can see some of the other, like, powerful things about this over here. And actually, let me link this module real quick for you guys as well. So this is the documentation module that you could read about here and here. So that's the URI module. Feel free to pull that up, right? And go read about how this is going to work a little differently for you. I'm going to go grab some water real quick and take a little walking break for a second. My office is very warm in Phoenix, even though I've got the AC cranked. But I'll be right back. So you guys got another 4 minutes or so to work on this lab, and then we're going to get into the next one. We're going to stay on the Ansible URI module, though, for a bit. All right, I'll be right back. Almost done. You got 2.5 minutes left. And we'll get back to it. I want you to think of the use cases you would use this for. Where would you use this in your enterprise, in your business, in your line of work? Whatever you're doing in engineering, how might you use a tool like this? Right? And then I'll give you a pretty solid use case here in a second, a way that I've used it and a way that is probably the most enterprise. This will be heavily enterprise here in a second because we'll be using Vault and HashiCorp tools. Oh yeah, Control Byte, yeah. I wish I could show you guys the health check that I have with Ansible like this that I use across all my clusters. I can't show it to you guys because it's used inside of the specific check. I guess I'll make a generic version of it and I'll show you that. Oh, Gamma, this would absolutely work to install software to your VMs in the cloud environment. Yeah, that's exactly a way you could use it. Yep. And you could use this URI call here to find which ones are out there by querying, you know. In fact, I'm going to show you guys here in a second a way that we do it. There's this other module over here. There's a lab that's not in our normal set of labs that we're going to end up using right here. So give it a second, and when this thing's done in 58 seconds, I'll pop back on here and we'll go. We'll get to moving fast. So yeah, Tomato, this URI module is very similar to a curl under the hood. You could use this as a health check for your APIs in your environment too. Yeah, absolutely. That's a way that you could do it. Absolutely. I use this heavily to hit satellite and to pull data out of it so that I can get my inventories right. So that's a thing that I do often with it. So, okay. Let's pop myself back up on here. Let's get rid of our timer's done, and we'll close that for now. Get it out of the way. There's a lab that's kind of like a challenge for people that if you have the book, it would be here, but if not, that's fine. It's just in our normal labs. And if you jump out of our normal labs and go down to our HashiCorp labs, in our HashiCorp labs, I'm gonna drop us in the using Ansible to read secrets from Vault. And now you might ask, Scott, why is this one over in HashiCorp and not in Ansible? Well, it's because this is kind of like it requires you to install HashiCorp Vault, so that's why I put it over here. But also, it's I think this is the most challenging of the labs that I've written. It walks you directly through it, but this one's definitely the one that you have to be paying attention to the most. So I'm going to link this on the YouTube side if anybody wants to do it with me. All the labs are free, by the way, in case you guys don't know that. Anybody newer might not know that the labs are completely free. And then people on the Twitch side, I have it pinned, and I will leave it there manually. So here's this lab. And this lab does not require us to have the book open, so I'm just going to pull this across like this so we can see the whole lab as we do it. We don't need the book for this part of this, okay? So this one is reading a vault and secrets with Ansible. So this one's a little more complex, like I said. I said examine this workflow for the tasks that we're about to complete. If you're using this lab, let me show you a cool little trick. You can right-click and say open this image in a new tab. And when you do that, it'll pop up like this. So now this is the whole workflow that we're going to do right now. We're going to build out Vault from HashiCorp. We are going to create a secret in Vault. This could be done by a security team. It could be done by one of our developer teams. It could be done by anybody. Then we're going to turn on user pass authentication. Typically, your security team that runs Vault would have to turn that on. What that does is that allows us to make a user by name and give them a password to use, right? Then we're going to create a user called Ansible. and we're going to apply some policies to this user, right? The policies, they'll be written for you. You don't have to write them yourself. And again, it's Vault. It's very HashiCorp Vault-ish. But if you're going to go get a Vault certification, this is good practice. So you're going to build all that. And again, that could be done by some other team. I tend to be like a platform. You might almost call me like what DevOps and site reliability engineers do. Maybe I kind of bubble up into the DevOps space. I'm going to write a deployment playbook. And the deployment playbook is going to go and check that data out using Ansible. I'm going to check out data that comes from a dev team or some other team in my organization. They're going to put data secretly into Vault, and they're going to give me permission to read that data. Then I'm going to come through with my Ansible playbook, and let's say I'm deploying an environment for them. And those secrets could be passwords to databases. They could be connect strings to databases, like where a database is in the network. It doesn't matter to me what it is. All that matters to me is they've built it, they give me the correct schema for it, and then they give me permissions to read it. Because we're in a lab environment, this is something I always got to like step back and explain, like when we're talking labs. We have to do everything ourselves. So I'm not going to sit here with like 7 different hats and keep putting on different hats that say like developer or admin or whatever. But you got to understand that all these steps would probably be split out to other teams. Because if this wasn't something like this from a security standpoint, you might just scratch your head and go, why the hell did you do all that, Scott? Why didn't you just put it into the playbook? You knew the answer. The correct answer is when I build the pipeline, I don't know what the answer are. Those variables and those things that we're doing are not mine. They're coming from some other team. And once I build this, any team then can put those same secrets into their Vault location, give me permission to read it. I can point my Ansible playbook at it. In fact, I can give them the ability to hand me an environment file, and it'll point at it directly. So now I don't even have to do shit anymore. I just write the playbook once, and then I go sit over here and watch Netflix while other teams deploy their stuff. This is where Tower becomes really powerful and stuff, right? But anyways, the point is, all that to say, this lab seems complex, and it also seems like over the top, like, why are you doing that? You already knew the data. You just got to remember, we're being 4 different people. Hey, by the way, I can see you guys on the YouTube side, Juan and Bertrand. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Everybody's being kind of quiet, but I think people are kind of quiet on Sundays for me because they're probably like, this guy's a nut job and he's just moving too fast. But I want you guys to be able to reference this to what we're doing. When the Ansible process starts, we're going to use the URI module to log in to Vault with a username and a password. We're going to do that at the command line at first, and that's not super secure. So then we're going to secure this process down. But when we first test it, we're going to get a token back. And we're going to be... I need a little token in here. Let's just call this little guy my token, right? And I'm going to grab that little token. I'm going to be like a little kid running around, and I can present that token back to Vault. And if I send that token in, and that token is attached to a user that has the right permissions with the right Vault policy to read, then I'm going to get back the secrets that I'm supposed to. So again, username to a token to check in, and then get our thing. This is a big part of that. Not OIDC. What's the name of that? Somebody tell me. Somebody knows here. What's the name of that? When you do that. Anyways, it's the token based. All right, we'll look at it all. So that's the thing. If you need to, just open the image in a new tab, and there you have it so you can review it. So we're going to start up the HashiCorp stuff first. Again, this is not strictly speaking the Ansible side of things, but we have to build this. So we'll start the Vault server dev, and then we're going to hit enter. And now we've got Vault running. If I just did a ss-ntulp grep-i for Vault, we would see Vault running on port 8200. That's what we want. But we need to get a couple of pieces of information from the system. The first one is static. It is that we are talking to our machine on port 8200. That's the Vault address. The second one, the second piece of information, is a little more complex because it's going to be different for each one of you. You have to use this root token right here. And I'm using Control-Shift-V because we're in a Windows, not a Windows, but we're in a web page. So Control-Shift-V is your paste if you're using that. So boom, we hit that. And then now we've got these two tokens or two variables in our bash that are the address and the token. So now if I have those, I can check vault status. And the vault command uses those two values to know who to connect to and to know the token to use, and it will authenticate over an API call that, hey, yeah, we're open, we've got an unsealed vault, meaning we can read and pull data out of it, all that kind of good stuff. Hey, Traffic King, how's it going? I can see you over on the YouTube side. I can check right now. Things are running. We're good. We've got Vault up. Vault is a different beast for a different day. This lab is more about the Ansible. So it says, now that you got Vault running, you've got to create a secret. You could be reading the secret from another tool, and in a real-time environment, it could be populated by another process or team. And how's it going, MMD, over on the YouTube side? I see you guys as well over there. So let's keep going with this. So we're going to look at all the secrets that exist. And the main secret that I care about is we do have secret key value pair version 2. That's the default nowadays. There used to be, you could also run the version 1, but the version 1 doesn't allow you to version your keys. And it's less useful, but it's all possible to store data. It's all storing data. So I'm going to create a put. I'm going to do a put to put in the path secret app1 values. Again, we could use anything we want in here. And the values are going to be a username, secret user, and password super secure. Some team would set these into our vault somewhere. And then if I go and I read them, and because I'm the root, I can read anything, I'm going to go look at the data right here. Yeah, MMD, that's what we're doing. We're working on Ansible right now. That's what we're working on. We're actually building the vault side of things, but then we're going to get back to Ansible here in a second. All right, so we hit check here, and all that stuff's good. And it says, now you've got Vault running and you've created the secret. You need to create a programmatic access to that secret. So, enable the Vault user pass authentication. I told you security person on your team would probably need to do that. Create a user for Vault, assign a password, and then make a policy. So let's do that real quick. We're going to turn on Vault user pass. So now we can use a user password. We're going to make that user as Ansible, and we're going to give them the password Ansible1234, right? That's basically 12 shift 34, right? Then we're going to make a policy file real quick. And this policy file, you can read it right here, cat root Ansible policy, is a simple policy that says anything in the path secret, which, by the way, here's the secret path right here, anything in there, anything underneath that, you can create, read, update, and delete. So CRUD is the basic 4 that you're used to if you do API, or really a lot of things. And then list and patch deal with the version 2 portion, where listing will let you see all the old versions, and patch will let you update to a new version of something, of a new version of a key. So create, read, update, delete are of the what you would call like the current data, and then list shows you the old data, the old versions that you have, and patch allows you to update the patch version but not delete the data because it would still just be rolling to older versions. All right, that's also outside of the scope of this, but okay, we've created that file, right? And then now we write that file in, and then we assign that file, that policy that we made, into the user Ansible. And then if we read the user Ansible, he's got that Ansible policy. So the user Ansible can see the user policy. I have a whole talk on this that goes deep into this. We're not going to worry about that right now. And then we'll go. Question, I understand that secret is sensitive information, but what type of data or in what format is the secret created for us to manage it? Okay, Traffic King. So anything that you put in here, like when I created this secret right here, and there's different ways to push this secret up. You can use HTTPS and you need to push it up. It will go into Vault, and then Vault encrypts it. And Vault uses at least AES 256 as the back end. I believe that's the minimum. And then Vault has their own front-end encryption when you actually go to connect to them. So Vault goes and puts it back. It's got this thing called RAF storage, and it puts it back in the storage. Although we're running Vault in dev mode, so nothing ever goes back to disk. It's all being done in memory right now. Do I need to make a hash for the value? No, all of these things are fine. You're going to see how we're going to read this here in a second. So we've got that part all set up, right? And it says we're successful. So everything on the Vault side, now we got to write our Ansible side of things. So, but we cannot leave our passwords in Ansible out in the open. We will be using Ansible Vault to hold all of our information. So I'm going to show you it without the Ansible Vault, by the way, guys, before anybody gets confused, there's HashiCorp Vault that we just set up, and there's an Ansible Vault, which is completely different, right? It's on the side of Ansible. So we're going to do both of them here. We've already set up the HashiCorp Vault. Now let's look at the Ansible side of things. So we're going to install Ansible real quick. It might take about, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds or so. Let that install Ansible real quick. And we're going to make a playbook called root secret read.yaml. And let's run this real quick. That might take like 25 seconds. So here's our root secret read.yaml, and we're going to grab this right here. And for some of you that were in the last lab, here's that URI module again. And here's that local vault that we're hitting. And we're going to hit the auth user pass login with the name Ansible. But we're using a variable here. And then we're going to give it a post, and we're going to return the content back to see what it tells us. And the body format is going to be JSON. And then we're going to give it a password passed in as part of the body, and then we're going to register that variable out, that all the data it gives us back, user connect, and then we're going to debug it to see if we can get that data out. Our secrets, text files, tarballs, binaries, directories, just sorry, trying to understand what is considered. So Traffic King, secrets is one of Vault's, so Vault has a bunch of different tools that it can use for the secrets, and we enabled the one on key value pair, and then that just goes and gets stored. And back, I guess it would just be stored as raw data. It would be, actually, no, I guess I've never really looked at what it stores it in, but it's just, I've always thought of it just as a blob of data sitting out there. I guess it's just a binary file. I don't know exactly. It's an encrypted AES 256. I don't know. I guess it'd be just a text file sitting out there. So there's that. Yeah, no, we're not using either of the vaults right now just yet. Well, we are hitting HashiCorp Vault right here. Okay, so watch this real quick. When we go to run this, I'm going to hit escape : WQ. When we go to run this, we're going to do something very bad. At the command line, we're going to put the password, the username and password. We do not want to do that normally, guys. We do not normally want to put the username and password at the command line like this. That's a bad practice in the enterprise. But we're doing it just for now, just to see. So when we come down here, I went and I connected, and the debug is we got this user connect variable back, and when we go look under the user underscore connect .json .auth .client token, I got the data that I need to present to them as I am the Ansible user. So I have successfully right there logged into Vault as the Ansible user. That's what just happened right here. Okay. So there's some other things, the duration of the key and some other stuff. Don't care about any of that right now, but there's all this data with it, right? And I've got that variable now. I could use this token going forward, but I want to make this a full pipeline. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to be putting things in on the command line. So let's fix this so it's a little more secure. Let's say Ansible Vault create YAML, vault.yaml, and on this I'm going to do I'm going to make a password that we're using in the lab right there. Ansible 1234, and then Ansible 1234. That'll be my actual password. In here, we're going to drop the data, username, and password. Those are key value pairs inside of YAML that will be read in as variables when we run this playbook. So now we don't have to pass them in at the command line because, again, that's really bad practice. So let's go read this again, and we're going to add right here vars files. And right here, we're going to say root vault.yaml. And I'm taking it right from the lab over there. So now when I run this, I don't need these extra variables anymore because now I can get them from inside of the playbook. So, but when I go to run this, I need to know the vault decrypt. So it's Ansible 1234, right? And then now it'll run and it'll get it. So when you say data pair, you use username, password. No, it was username and then the actual username, which was Ansible, and then password was the password for Vault. Yeah. So by the way, let's look. Let's say can I cat root vault.yaml? can't cat it. It's AES 256 encrypted. But I can say Ansible Vault view. It might be show. Let's see. I haven't looked at that in a while. Now I need the password. And then that'll show me. So username, Ansible, password, Ansible1234, right? That was, because that's what we told Vault over on the HashiCorp side was the password. So now if we ran this again, we also saw there's our token again. So we got it to work as the token. So now I need to add to this lab. I need to add to this another part. And I'm going to comment this out because I don't want to keep debugging things that I know work, right? Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave that, but I'll show you guys a little trick. When you're using debug, you can say verbosity and say 2. And now if you do verbosity of 2, unless you'd put 2 V's in your playbook, it'll just skip this. It's real nice. So name, we're going to add this new part right here. And this is going to now take that token that we just had. Go right here. And we're going to go back to the vault. And we're going to hand this value as xvault token. Remember I said that we could see that token from this first part as user connect. Now user connect.json.auth.client token is Ansible running over and giving Vault that token and say, give me the secret creds out. I have proved to you that I am the Ansible user up here. I now have authentication, and this is my authentication, and you're going to go check my authorization, which is that vault policy that we made, and then you're going to give me back the secret creds, and I'm going to debug the secret creds, and they should be, when we go look at them, they should be the actual 2 values that we put into the HashiCorp vault earlier. So, whoops, gotta make sure your password's right or it won't work. So it's going to do all the first part. It skipped the local debug because that was a waste. And then now our secret creds .json .data .password is super secure, and .username is secret user. So we can pull that data out. Now, if I were doing a deploy against some environment, you have an option to mask the output of the execution of the playbook. Yeah, Bernard, you don't have to show this to the screen if you didn't want to either. Traffic King, this is 2 different pieces of data in the same secret, technically. The secret is this path here. V1 secret data app1 values, and then I put 2 pieces of data, 2 key values in that same location is the way that I did that. So yeah, values were, yeah. So that's it's, I guess technically it's 2 secrets, but it's in one location inside a vault. I don't know how Vault considers that, but for our side of things, it's 2 secrets. So guys, I'm answering questions over on the YouTube side. Which, by the way, it's funny, YouTube has more viewers than Twitch, even though I've been doing Twitch for years. Twitch just never got super busy for me, so, oh well. Look at you, putting secrets and everything. So look, we did all of these things here. We created the secret. We did all the Vault stuff, right? That was the Ansible, or the HashiCorp Vault over here. But Ansible, we sent in a username and password. We got back a token. We sent that token in and read the secret and got the secret back out, and were able to post it. And the whole reason we did that was to prove to ourselves, we were doing the URI module, right? What was it, API something? What the hell was that? Secret read, there it is. Just to prove to ourselves that we could use this URI module to go hit some URL, do something, get some value back, some information back, pass that information. Look, so user underscore connect became user underscore connect.json.auth.client token, and that got fed back in for us to read out the secret credentials at the end. So you look at all that. Stream is better on YouTube, less lag latency on the stream. Nice trafficking. I like that. But again, this may look like a lot of stuff for you to go, well, Scott, you already knew the 2 values. Why didn't you just give them to Ansible? Because in a pipeline situation, I might not know what's going to come from my different teams. Yeah, granted, I do need to know what it is when I actually go through the pipeline process, but the point is they can keep their secrets. I'm like Bilbo going, okay, keep your secrets then or whatever, right? Like I don't have to know their crap. I can just run the pipeline and go check out their things, drop the variables in where they need to in my deployment. Their application code that I pull up gets those variables and goes and connects to the right database in the environment that I've stood up for them. And that's super powerful, like really, really powerful to be able to do that. And everything's checked out and everything's tracked, and everything is pretty secure in the big scheme of things. If you compromised my code base, you've got nothing. You've got no real secrets there because all the secrets are somewhere else, right? And if you, I mean, I guess if you compromise that, you'd have some secrets and stuff, but you might not have compromised the actual system. So it's like, it's layers upon layers of security is what we always look at, right? So, all right, so something to think about. So that was that lab. That was a challenge lab to make this original API and debugging a little more like what we would use in the enterprise. I wanted you guys to kind of see and touch some of those pieces, all right? So, all right, so we'll go back to, we'll do some more Ansible. And this next one is, it's actually funny, this next one's easier than the one we just did. And it's some of the same topics. So we'll go into the Ansible labs. Jacob Paul said, graduated today with a BS in cybersecurity. Nice, congratulations. Moving into a systems engineering role next month. I want to say I'm glad you found your channel. Your stuff is awesome and so helpful. Thanks, Jacob. I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I've also been teaching, so congratulations on your degree. Degrees are important, right? They do give you that positive differentiator for getting a career. I tell you guys, you don't need a degree to get into this space, but it's useful. It's very awesome that Jacobs went through that process, so that's really good. Let's go on to the vaulting part. So now, it's funny, we just did a lab on Vault, but now we're actually going to vault. So I'm going to drop this over for you guys on the YouTube side, and then on the Twitch side, I will undo this one. So unpin this message, and I will repin the new message. All right, and we'll get into here. And this one won't take very long because this is it's pretty simple to show you guys how Vault works inside of Ansible. It's a pretty straightforward little tool. The lab link is the one that I just linked to you guys. And Faisal, hopefully this stuff's useful to you. And also, yeah, he said congrats. So yeah, we're all congratulating Jacob, because that's really, I mean, the completion of a degree is like, it's a big thing, man. It's like, you feel like you're done with something, you're on to the next, but it's like you're still just got to keep learning stuff in our career. But it's still like a really awesome milestone for people that have done that. So you'll never, it's an interesting thing. You'll never hear somebody who has spent time getting a degree call it a piece of paper, because it's the process that changes you. But anyways, all right, we'll let that go. But let's lab activities. So we're going to do playbook execution to see extra vars. So is that what I want? Yeah, that's fine. Your team has decided they need to more securely keep their secret information. We don't want data just everywhere. Somebody said, is it possible to manage Cisco devices using Ansible, like pulling the config files, etc.? Absolutely, Juan. So Ansible uses a whole bunch of modules. Everything inside of Ansible is module based. So if I come over here and I say Ansible Cisco modules, here's all the iOS type modules right here. So the question was, is there a way to use, or the question was, is there a way to use Ansible to manage X network device? He said Cisco, but any device. Yeah, look at all this. Do I want to use these individual things? Is there a way to just pull? I wonder if there's a way to just pull the data out. There probably is. But this is all the iOS. Run commands on remote devices. So could we just run commands on different devices? Yes. So name show on remote devices, Cisco iOS commands, command show version would give an output that looked like this. And you could also use that, right? Because this is just how to use the module. But if you understand Ansible, you could register that and you would have all this output to go throw into a file or something, right? Because, by the way, not everybody here uses Cisco or whatever, but when you use Cisco and you do show run, So you show the running commands and you dump out the configuration. If you take that file and go set it aside, and then you put a brand new exact same Cisco device in there, and then you say, you drop that running config back into the running router, it will configure the device the exact same way. A lot of people, maybe if you haven't used Cisco, you don't know that. But that has been a thing about Cisco for the last... God, I've been using Cisco for 24 years, so probably been a Cisco thing for longer than that, right? So my point in saying that is you could use this to dump configs. There's other tools to do that nowadays. I mean, they're really good network tools that'll just grab all your device configs and you have all the versioning and stuff. But the point is, if you absolutely had to do it yourself, because maybe you don't trust the tool or maybe you don't trust whatever, you want a secondary in case of everything going down. I want to be able to fix things with flat files on my laptop. Guys, I've been an admin a long time. I agree too. Like I like having my stuff close to me so I can fix it myself. I don't trust the tool that may be down, or if DNS goes down, I can't restore, a meteor hits our data center and I have to rebuild what I can. I want it close to me. I don't want it far away. So, I'm the same way. But the point is, look at all this. Yeah, you could pull anything you wanted here. Yeah. So anyways, that's a command thing. All right, that was our last module. All right, so let's do this. It says your team has decided they need to more securely keep their secret information instead of just passing values at the command line. That makes sense, right? Like I just said this earlier. Don't just dump stuff on the command line. Everything you ever did is in history if other people have root in your environment, which probably more people than you want have root, depending on how well we've kept root close to you and your engineering team, right? So you know that Ansible Vault can be used to securely store variables. So verify your root host file. So cat root hosts. In these later labs, I wrote all this stuff for you. It's not in the early labs. I make you write it to get the memory and the practice down. But in the later ones, it's all written for you. So root variables.yaml is a simple playbook that is going to simply debug over a message with an item, and it says item is in variable list. And then down here, it says with items. Now, I want to show you guys something about Ansible real quick. The with items is actually a older convention. It will still work in this lab, but you could also, instead and more correctly, say loop. But I'm going to change it on mine. It'll still work on any of yours without that. Right? Now, it'll loop over, and the first time it loops over for message, item will be username, and then password will be password the second time. So let's go, whoops, I want to actually run this. Let's run this playbook, and this is going to break all over the place. But why is it going to break? Well, because we're trying to run a playbook that's trying to look for two variables that do not exist. The username and password variable do not exist. It says right there, undefined. What are you doing, dummy? You can't have a username and password that don't exist as variables, and in the runtime it's going to fail. So we come over here and we could just put Scott and password in there at the command line. Username equals Scott, password equals secure, and then now it says Scott is in the variable list and secure is in the variable list, and the playbook ran. But back to that problem. We don't like putting usernames and password at the command line. That's not a super secure way to do things, because now if you type in history, you see my username and password for my user, Scott. So Scott is the user, password is secure. That's a problem. So how do we fix that? How do we not do that? So now we're going to create Ansible Vault. So we're going to say Ansible Vault create, and we're going to have to give it some password. I'm going to do a very super secure 1234. 1234. Super secure password. It drops me into the editor of my choice, which happens to be VI. So I hit I to go to insert mode. And I'm going to say username is user1. And password is some strong password. Okay? Escape :WQ. And then I cat that root vault. What do I call it? Vault.yaml. And I can't read it anymore. It's AES-256 encrypted. I see that right here. That's the minimum cloud standard for encryption. So you need to know that if you're going to take any of the ISC squared tests. All right. So if we want to view the vault, we have to say Ansible Vault view vault.yaml. And then I need to know my password, 1234. And then now it reads it for me. It decrypts it back to the original YAML, back to the original key value pairs that I put in there. So now that we've done that, we've seen a playbook that can do variables of some type. We can loop over variables. Then we saw how we could populate it in a poorly executed way with just extra variables at the command line. Now we've created a vault that has those two variable names in it. Let's add those values to that vault, or to that playbook, so it can read from the vault, and then it can go ahead and put those values in there in real time. Like if we need to go check something out like we did in that other lab, all these kind of things. All right, so run the playbook vault variables to see Ansible run and use the vault variables. So there's a new playbook in this environment, cat root vault variables. And look at how this one works. I added these two lines right here. I said vars underscore files vault.yaml. So do you guys see that? The vault.yaml right there? That vault.yaml is going to go, and it says in this world that we live in this environment that we're in, there's a vault.yaml file, and you can read that and get more variables out of it. That's what it's telling Ansible right there. But Ansible is going to go find that and say, well, that's encrypted. I need a vault password. So there's two ways to hand in the vault password in Ansible. You can either say ask vault pass and give it at the command line, where it'll be non-encode to the screen, or you can put it into a file and then you can read from the file, which is a way that works for pipelining. You can make it as secure as possible, and then somebody would have had to compromise your root for this to work. Amit said, hey, can you suggest how I can utilize Killer Coda platform for gaining skills in DevOps practices? I know basic Linux currently. I'm looking for a roadmap to traverse the platform. Well, Amit, I would tell you, find out what you're interested in doing. If you want to do DevOps, right? A lot of times when people think DevOps nowadays, they immediately think Kubernetes. Then what I might say is maybe think about planning for a CKA, right? Certified Kubernetes Administrator. And my way to tell you to get ready for that would look like this. I'd say go to Killer Coda and start at the top here with their CKA and their CKS certifications, because and the CKAD. This will help you get ready for the CKA stuff. So you go to the CKA certification. Kim Woosterkamp has his stuff. He's the guy who actually runs it. And then this guy's got 70 plus scenarios, and this guy's got a bunch of scenarios too, right? That's a way that I would tell you to start getting ready. That's one. The other thing that would be really useful, and this is maybe one of the I use this a lot when I was getting ready for my CKA. So Amit, if this works, go to the playgrounds, right? The playgrounds are simply open environments of CKA. So like I click this and, I can't, well, because I'm in the other environment, but I would click on that and it would drop me into a thing, and I would do like kubectl, git pods, or git nodes, right? And I would see that I'm on the newest version of whatever. And then this is the thing that I actually really liked doing this when I was getting ready. So I would come over here and I would say GitHub CKA practice, right? I would just go to somebody's GitHub, and some of these guys have really, really good, this guy has a really good GitHub on it, right? If this is the guy, yeah. So this guy says, hey, you're going to be evaluated on these things. These are the same things that come up on like a GitHub. Faisal, Ansible's completely compatible with Windows. Yes, I've used Ansible to control thousands of Windows servers in a production environment. Yeah. You use WinRM and you connect right to it. Support 5985 and 5986. Yeah. Faisal, it doesn't matter how I get to Linux. All right. Anyway, so we're gonna come over here to cluster architecture, and why I like this so much is this guy will say use kubeadm to install a basic cluster, and then he'll walk you through a solution, and you can go do the commands and work through the individual pieces. Or, and I really like some of these. Let's go back here, and let's say that you were doing workloads and scheduling, and he asks you here to go, can you create a deployment named Nginx deploy in an NS Nginx namespace using Nginx version 1.22 with 3 replicas, check the deployment rolled out, and show the running pods. Can you do all that? And if you can't do all that, here's his solution, which literally just does it for you. And I really liked this because if you struggled, you could come in and build all this. So this was to answer a question for Amit, which was simply around, getting DevOps experience. There's all this stuff to get ready. And the reason I like getting, even if you weren't going to take a CK, you're like, God, Scott, I'm not going to pay $395. Oh yeah, you guys want this guy's GitHub? Hold on. This is I use this guy's specific GitHub. I think this is an excellent GitHub. Here it is in the YouTube side, and here it is over on the Twitch side. But yeah, this is a way to go and practice things. And again, I was telling you guys this earlier. I really believe this. If you tell me, hey, Scott, I could watch you for more than 5 minutes, or if you say, Scott, I really want to be an engineer and I'm studying, you're like Jacob, maybe that went and just finished his bachelor's. This is interesting to you and you want to do this. I'm a firm believer, most of you, if given something like this, and then you watched it work, and then I said, could you change that to be the username, the password, and the connect string, that most of you could come in here and add that variable and go and put it in the vault. You see what I'm saying? Like, once you have a working copy, you can modify it for all the ways that you want. And one of the reasons I like the body of knowledge around any certification is, even if you said to me, Scott, I don't believe in getting certs, that's too much work. I say, okay, fair. It's too much work. It costs $395 is a lot of money, guys. Like, I get it. $395 is what some people are, well, a few years ago, that's what some people would pay in rent, right? That's a lot of money. But instead, I'm just saying, for free, you could be learning all these pieces, and then the whole BOK, the body of knowledge, that's what we call it out in the industry, and you're ready to go talk to that. You could put down, I've studied for my CKA, and if somebody has a question for you on an interview, or you're going to do some contract work for somebody, you can feel confident that you can do all the things. And that's important, right? We're always talking about this right here, right? Do all the Linux. That's the thing. Like, I think you guys can be ready to do these things. All right. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on that. So we came here, we did all this, so we're gonna run this real quick, and we're gonna ask for the vault password, which for me was 1234, and it's gonna run. And now it says user 1 is in the variable list and some strong password is in the variable list. So we looped over that and it worked. Okay. So now the other way to do this is we can echo, in my case, 1234 into .pass file. So it's a hidden pass file. We're going to chmod that file to 400, which means that only we can read it. Only our user. So if we ls-l on .pass file, it is readable only by the root owner, the user ID owner of root, the group owner of root. So anybody that shares root as a subgroup to their normal group cannot read it, and neither can anybody else in the world. That's how we read those permissions, right? Read, write, execute only for root, but read only for root. Nothing for the group root and nothing for everybody else. That's how we read those permissions, right? Now I can run this, and I can just give that pass file, and it'll go and it'll run and it'll read and decrypt without changing anything. Now, this is simply a start and simply a way to do it on the command line. There are more secure ways to do it than even this. If I pull up my home lab for Tower, do I have my AWX in my home lab? I'll pull up my home lab, and I'll show you guys that there's an even more secure way to vault inside of a Tower environment. I'll pull this up. I don't have Tower Labs out there, and Tower has been changed out to Ansible Automation Platform, but on the free side of it, it's AWX still, and it is a very powerful platform for enterprises to be able to allow different users and groups to come in and run playbooks, maybe only against servers that they should go to. Maybe you give them elevated permissions through here, but without or with the distinction of only on certain environments and certain types of nodes. And man, there's all kinds of things we can do inside a Tower. I'll show you mine real quick. It's my home lab one, and it's a bit older, but mine can execute anything that I need to, right? Real quick back over here, let's finish up the lab. And it says, looks to you learning Ansible, you vaulted information, decrypted it, and read the variables. You solved this challenge. So you got the variables in, you got them out, you read them different ways, and you did all these things. All right. So my tower's coming up. I've got a very old version of AWX. I've got like version 9. They're up on like version 27. But this is what AWX used to look like. It's still pretty similar, but it's this is what it used to look like. Yeah, I tell you guys all the time, like, as an engineer, I don't care what tool you give me. Guys, when you see me do adminning in my home lab, I'm just on a simple putty shell. I downloaded this from a free chiriacgreenwood.co UK or whatever the hell that site is that does this. And I can do everything I need to from here, right? I got all my environments. I can, well, I'm assuming my system's up. My system's asleep back there. What's going on here? Fucking system sleeping on me. You're embarrassing me, system. I think my jump box is at like a super high load or something. What's going on here? It's like my bash environment's asleep. What's going on here? I'm trying to control my screen to move between my sessions, but like that server must be under really high load or something. Oh, it's possible that it's getting hammered from the internet, which happens often. What's going on here? Whoops, didn't want that. I didn't want that. That is not what I meant to pull up. All right, shoot, what the heck? I lost my train of thought, guys. What was I showing you? Oh, yeah, my here we go. So, what the hell? Yeah, my whole jump box must be really locked up right now. Let's go check on it over here. Hold on. Go look at my XCPNG and see what's... No, it's back. Hold on. All right. Yeah, what the heck's this box doing? It's sleeping. Anyway, so yeah, as long as I can get to here, I can do whatever I want. Yeah. Yeah, Useless Pony, I'd agree. Adaptability is pretty big. Like, I can read and figure most things out, and that's kind of a thing that helps as an engineer. Anyways, here's my lab environment for my home lab, right? And a lot of you, people down our Discord, you guys can get access to the home lab if you need for that kind of stuff. All right. Is AWX a type of hypervisor? No, so this is XCPNG. This is my hypervisor. I have 3 physical machines that sit behind me in a half rack. I actually got the half rack from the director of engineering for Qualys for the Americas. He's a guy that I know pretty well from when I worked at AAA. He gave me that half rack. He's like, hey, I want to donate this over to your Linux group. And I was like, all right. So then I put a couple of servers, actually 3 servers that I have over there in it. And that's where all of my servers are built right here. We'll go over the lab one of these days when it's not a Sunday. Sundays are always our all lab days. But my home lab is built up of these different servers. Here's my AWX server, the one that we just connected into. And this is my little dashboard for like what's going on in my home lab at any given time. And then this goes and reads. So the way this works inside of Ansible, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do to set up. But the main one for me is you set up projects. So this can go pull stuff down out of GitHub. And here's all my different GitHub stuff, right? And I've got this Bastion project test, which is one of my projects up in GitHub. So we click on this, and it'll tell you where it's reading that from. It's GitHub, het-tanis, and then it's that path. And it's the master branch, or it could be main, or it could be Scott test branch, whatever branch I want to run on for whatever environment I'm in. Some options for how I pull that code down, and then I can go to a template, and from that SCM that I have, that software configuration management, whatever, GitHub as we often call it, I can go build one of these templates for a deployment for people to use. So right here, this is the Bastion project test. I run it off of my jump box. Here's some credentials. This is what I was really showing you guys, was I have vaulted credentials here called jump box login. And then I use a run type job against the site.yaml playbook out of that project. So if I go to my GitHub right now, this is my GitHub. I don't do a lot with GitHub, but here's my stream setup, which is where that was pointed. And here is my site.yaml that's being called right there. This is my site.yaml. Author het-tanis, this is going to set up a Bastion, a system to jump through to one other system. The date was the 19th of September in 2021, and me and Michael Pessa wrote most of this. All it does is inherit a role, and then it restarts. Whoops, and then it restarts SSH if it needs to. So let's go look at the role that it inherits. So we jump up one, we drop down into roles for Bastion deploy, because that's the only thing in there. That's why it drops like that. And then the tasks, and then the main.yaml. And some of you that have been around before when we've done our when we did our jailing, or if you've seen me build a Bastion host before, this is the Ansible to build a Bastion host right here. This is the Ansible. And this may look a bit complex if it's your first time doing it, but I assure you, one of the nice things about Ansible is this. You can come in here and you can go like this. You can go, okay, what's Scott doing here? He's enabling or disabling users for the Streamlab. Okay, he's using this user module. I can go read about that. He's passing in a username. Where's he getting that username from? When he runs it over here, watch. So when I run it, so I come back here, I'm going to say that I want to launch this template. It's going to ask me a bunch of questions. This is a survey. This is what's called a survey inside a tower. Here's the deploy or remove. Here's the username. Here's the password. And then do I want to report it out to our Discord or not, right? Well, all of those things are right here. Username. Do I want to deploy it or tear it down? Because this both deploys and tears it down in one playbook. Adding lines, and then whether I'm making them or removing them. So this is when I want to add the line and file. And then the state is, do I make it present or absent? So do I put it in or do I tear it out? Again, this is a playbook that's used to both deploy my Bastion or pull it out. And then we run down and we walk through all these pieces. We make streamer. He's some out of the way user. He does not have permissions, but the bin bastion.sh. He never gets a shell. He gets this as his shell, the shell script. It's a little tricky thing that we use to make sure that bastions are real. Then we jail him. We build a jail. And we built a jail in one of our other labs. We copy over bash, SSH, and curl. Those are the only things we're going to give him to do. We're going to copy over his Bastion shell script, and we build the jail. This is all building the jail. Find a list of libraries for bin sh, find a list of libraries for bin bash, find the list of libraries for bin curl, put them all into these variables, and then build all those variables out in a loop where we add them all together. It's like this very simple thing that just looks complex because we spent time building it. Me and M-Pesa wrote this a few years back, right? Like 3 years back. Build the rest of the jail out and then set it all up or delete it and then post it out to Discord. So some of you have been in our Discord and you've seen this published or seen this torn down. And this is just a way that we either send and or delete things in our environment. Sorry, we're slipping from the main presentation or what? No, Bernard, we're still doing, this is still Ansible. But this is all Ansible right here. We're just moving away from, I guess, we're not directly in labs right now. We're still looking at a lab, though. It's just my home lab, I guess, strictly speaking. But anyways, this is the tower. If you've ever used Tower or AWX, this is kind of where that works. All right. So we'll get out of there. The general lab here, though, is done. We did all the pieces we need. So then the last thing we would do is I would have you guys spend 5 minutes thinking about the lab. So I'm going to turn myself off here, and you've got 5 minutes to kind of think about this lab that you did if you did it with me. Here's the questions over here on the right that you would ask yourself. Here's the things that you would kind of talk through or work on. And then we'll continue on with the next one here in a minute. I'll take a break, give my voice a break here for a second, and then we'll keep going. And Juan, if I missed your answer earlier, AWX is not like a hypervisor. It is a orchestrator for Ansible. That's what it is. XCP-NG is a type 1 hypervisor that I run in my home lab. So hopefully that clears that up. In case I didn't answer that early. I'm gonna grab myself a drink while I'm on my break. You guys feel free to ask any questions. I'll come back and I'll read them. I definitely appreciate everybody that's hanging out on both the Twitch and the YouTube side. I really hope this stuff's useful to you guys. All right, I'll be right back. By the way, guys, we're still on break. But I'm going to post a Discord link over on the Twitch side, and then I'll post it over here on the... Yeah, Ansible automation platform does cost money. That's true. But there's our Discord. Hopefully that link works for you guys. But that's just the kind of place where we hang out, talk. It's free. I am a big fan of like spending time with other engineers and talking with engineers. Even though I've been doing this a long time, I still get motivated talking to the other guys and, you know, guys and girls on the server, hanging out, comparing what's going on as engineers, you know, because I think that keeps you motivated. I think it gives you a sounding board. Sometimes you can ask questions of different things and share your frustrations. We have all that stuff that we do down there as engineers. So you guys are welcome to hang out down there. It's all free. Never going to charge anything for that. All right. 2 more minutes. Think about the labs. Yes, Psi Gamma, that's correct. So we're almost done with the little hourglass thinking about it, and that is correct. So I'm gonna go back here in a second. I'll go ahead and just stop this because it's there. The question was, we're here and we've got this vault, right? And we put something into vault, right? So let's cat vault.yaml, and you guys know that's not going to read. So ls, and we will Ansible Vault view vault.yaml, right? And in here with our 1, 2, 3, 4 to break in there, we see our username and our password, and they are key value pairs in YAML, right? So that's why it's not an equal sign there. It's a key value pair in YAML. Then if we cat vault variables like this, we're going to read those variables out right here from this vars file, right? And when we read those variables out, they're just going to be sitting in memory. They're not doing anything. Like Ansible's just like holding them in memory. It knows username is username and password is password. It just knows that. Not tied to any server or anything like that. It's just the variable username and the password, right? Then when we come down here, we said debug. Debug will just show us whatever we want. It'll just pop it out of the screen so we can read it. And we said we want to see in the message the variable is in the variables list. And then in the variable list, we said with items, or it could have been loop. And we looped over username, which it knew was user1. And then we looped over password as a variable that it knew was some strong password. And it dropped those values into the item right there. So this was us securely storing something to come back and read it later. And then we read it by actually at the command line calling vault, in this case with this password file. So if we cat the .passwd file, only we can read it. 1, 2, 3, 4 is our password. So then we go and we run that, and it's going to execute this. It should decrypt the vault and have these variables. Then it's going to run the debug to play the variables for us and just post them to the screen. We're not doing anything else with them, but we could put them into code blocks. We could deploy them in configuration files, and then we could put them into other. We could put them into Jinja templates that were YAML files that were then deployed into Kubernetes, and then delete them. Like we could do. I mean, we do almost anything we want, right? So hopefully that makes sense for you, Cygamma. Yeah, we went through a lot of this stuff, and I was telling you guys, some of this stuff's going to look like, why'd you do all that? Well, it's just to be able to store data securely. What is the pass file? That's a file that I made. It's just a file that I made in the lab right here. Just a file. So there's two ways when you want Ansible to run this. You could either say ask vault pass here, and it'll just ask you for the password, and then I can say 1234, and that would run. Or you can say, you know what, I've got a password file for you to read from, which is locked down right here in such a way that only the root user could read it anyways. So it's just one extra layer of, I guess security, if you want to think of it like that. But it makes the pipeline possible. Because this one right here, if it's going to sit like that forever, that can't be automated. I can't have a process call this play now because it's going to sit like this forever. I need to, if I'm going to call this as a play, or as a, I want Jenkins to call it. I want VRO to call it, which is a VMware product, right? The vRealize orchestrator. If I want any of those things to be able to call this, I have to use this. Now, again, some of you might be like, Scott, that's not super secure. You still got a password sitting there. I say, yeah, that's why we tend to use like Tower or something and let that vault at Tower or AWX to vault our secrets, and then we can just have an API call. And then now we're back to it's always authentication and authorization, right? But we're back to at that point calling in from somebody that has authorization to make that API call, and you can expose those API calls in Tower or AWX really easy. Tower is gone. It's Ansible automation platform now. But yeah, okay. So let's go on to our next lab. Our next lab is going to be the message of the day push. This is one of my favorite labs because it may seem kind of silly, but by being able to do super simple things in Ansible, it will help you to do everything else. Where you create the password for Ansible. Bertrand, you asked about where I made the password for Ansible. Oh, I just made it up. I used 1234. So then I just echoed 1234 into there. Here's our new lab that we're doing. That's over on the YouTube side. And then I'm going to pin the message over on the Twitch side as well. So, there we go. All right. So, by the way, fun fact, it only took like 2 weeks over on YouTube for YouTube to exceed my Twitch views, which is kind of funny. All right, so the lab message of the day. But by the way, guys, if you're wondering about this book, right, I'm showing you guys the book, but if anybody wants to buy it, it's over on the Lean Pub side of things. If you guys want to do that, that's up to you. You're free to just read these questions, but these questions are meant to be done like this. These are as you're doing the lab, you're asking yourself these questions. You could even write them down, and like I'm a big fan, guys, I'm a big fan of having Notepad open while I'm doing stuff, right? And then you take the Notepad, you write whatever you need to, and then I'm using Notepad++. Write for yourself the things that you understand about a thing, and if you don't understand a thing well, then write the things you don't understand about it well. But these questions up here are as you're doing the lab. They're designed to make you think about what you're doing. Down here, these are designed to make you go read and think about it later, right? That's the whole purpose of this. Like, this is as you're doing it, they're your reflection questions, and then digging deeper is kind of your as you go thinking about it later. These are designed to be like 10-15 minutes total. These are designed to spend you spend a little more time playing with this. All right. So anyways, this says, welcome to Prolog Ansible. Playbook execution to push message of the day to all servers. Your team has had mistakes, because users don't know what server they've jumped into, specifically the dev or prod environments. You have decided to push a message of the day file, MOTD, to all servers to help them know what systems they are on. So we've got a really big, obnoxious dev and prod, I love it, for the users. So let's verify our root host file, cat root hosts, and then we're going to verify our root MOTD push file. Those are the two things we need. We have our inventory file with our host group right here. In the server's host group is the control plane and node 01. Control plane has this new thing. It's a variable over here. It's the first time it showed up. And the variable is either environment prod or environment dev. Now, if you assign variables to a node, right, in some host in your inventory, you assign a variable and you don't use it in Ansible, does anybody know what happens to it? What happens in a program if you make a variable and then you don't use it? Well, I guess if you're in Go, you're going to get yelled at. But if you're in any other language, I mean, there's other languages that probably do it too, but in other languages, it doesn't care, right? Your system doesn't care. It had the variable with it and it never used it. That's exactly how Ansible treats it. So if we didn't use these variables, but they were defined, it doesn't matter. Well, it used a tiny little bit of memory in Ansible during its execution, which doesn't matter for 2 servers. It probably matters a little more for like 5,000 servers, but for the purpose of this, we're not working on optimization, so we could have as many little variables as we want here. But the point is, we've got environment prod and environment dev, and we come down here into our message of the day push. We've got our 3 dashes that denote the start of a YAML file, right? Then we have our message of the day push. That's a simple declaration of kind of what we're doing, right? Again, this is an arbitrary value. You could put whatever you want in there. You could say the ducks are free. It doesn't matter what you put there. It matters for you as an engineer later, especially if you want to grab this and put it into your configuration management system. That's why I try to say what I'm doing, because then when I get this clean output, I can just go dump it into my configuration management tool and I'm done for the night. Because if you guys have ever done configuration management or change management, as we often call it, CMDB type stuff, and you've got to you got to reference all your changes as an engineer and keep track of all the things you do. This makes it super simple. I know exactly what I did. I know exactly what servers I did it on. I know where it worked. I know where it failed. Super easy. No, it makes it easier anyways, right? So we come down here. We debug the environment variables. We have the servers tell us what env is for each of them. So we'll have that up front. Then we'll come down here and it says push over the file if prod. So if we're in prod, so we say when prod is in the environment variable, do this. If dev, or when dev is in the environment variable, do this. So we've got these decision structures now. They are single alternative decision structures, but they happen to hit the 2 environmental values that we have. So that's cool. But they're both still technically a single alternative structure, right? They're not dual alternative structures. They don't do anything else. There's no else on this. There's an if-then, but there's no else. There's an if-then, but no else, if that makes sense logically, right? Okay. Push over the file if prod. We're going to grab the root prod MOTD or the root dev one, but we push it to the same file. Look, destination etc MOTD, destination etc MOTD. By the way, one of the things I even say over here, you could probably do this simpler than I did. This is just the way that I did it, right? And you could probably get this down into 1 if you really wanted to spend some time with it. Guys, I'll do simple things very slowly, and if and against 2 nodes, this doesn't matter. The execution time against like 1,000 nodes, this would probably add about 10 minutes or something. Doing 2 of these, I'll eat that. I'm okay with that. But you need to understand where your trade-offs are, right? Sometimes we need to be efficient. Sometimes we just need it to work, right? You know, I always, I won't make that example, but I have an example I always use for that. But push the message of the day to all the servers. All right, so we cat our root host. We did that. We cat our push MOTD. Got that. So let's just run it, right? There's this old saying, like what one test is worth 1,000 expert opinions, right? So what's going to happen? I don't know. Let's just shoot it off and see. So we run it. See what happens. We start with both of the servers debugged and told us what they knew about themselves. Easy to debug to make a composition of things. Yeah, debug is very useful for you to go, the servers are serving, right? Like, what does the server see? A lot of you guys will sometimes set print statements in your code to see where your loops are or something. Debug to me is similar to that. You know, if something's busted, then we want to see the debug. But if it's not busted, then we'll just, you know, go with whatever. So push over the file if it's prod. You'll notice that it skipped node 01 and changed on control plane. Well, that makes sense because it says if it's prod. Okay. Push over if it's dev. Well, that makes sense based on that too. So good. We checked out. We see where it's skipped. We see where it's okay and changed. We have no unreachable and no failed. That's the best thing. Things are either changed or skipped. So what this means is execution worked perfectly, but we don't know if our logic is good yet. Does that make sense? Like you could make something work, right? Syntax can be good and it can run. And then in runtime it can work and that's good. But if our logic is good is still to be seen. That's the third type of error, right? Logic. So let's SSH2 node 01. Shows us big old dev. And then when we're over here, we can cat etc motd. There we go. And then from here, we can SSH to control plane. And there's our prod. Now, prod's harder to read because we're a little bit... Go a little bit wider. Ah, there, it's nice, right? There's our prod. So then I exit. I got to think, where am I at? I'm in control plane, back to node 01. Exit, back to control plane. And then we hit check. And it says, look at you learning Ansible. You pushed message of the days to all servers, and you solved this challenge. Hey, thanks for the follow over on the Twitch side. Hello, main. Hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Or hello, main. I don't know. Hopefully this stuff's useful. But yeah, that's our whole lab there. So we come over here. Clear that up because that's real ugly. And then you come over here and you think about this for a little bit, right? This is our typical lab stuff. I want you guys to spend a little bit of time thinking about it. I'm not going to take a break right now. I'm just turning this off so that you guys can read that and focus on that. But if you have any questions about that, or if you did that lab, or you want to practice the lab, one, it's linked on both sides here, whether you're on Twitch or YouTube. And then, yeah, do that. And then say, when you view the root host file, what's the difference from previous inventory? What are those key value pairs representing? They are arbitrary names of variables that we've assigned. And then it says, when the when condition is used, how does that map the different files to the same location on different servers? Well, our source was different, but our destination was the same. And then the environment variable is defined in the inventory, right? So we saw that. So that's questions 1 and 2. 3 said, what happens in the playbook when executed to the servers that do not meet the when condition? Well, they get skipped. They still get evaluated, but they got skipped, right? And then I asked you some questions if you want to go dig deeper. Read about the Ansible loop documentation. So what's going on in loop? I'll link this to you guys if you want to go spend a little time reading that, right? This is one of these things about engineers, right? We can spend time just getting something to work, and that's a very valuable thing, I think. But then there's also the possibility of going and digging deeper as we need to understand something better. So remember I told you guys all that with items stuff is old. So now there's comparing them. You can still use the old with, but now loop, you have these other things that you can do, right? And then standard loops start to be able to dump items in. This is almost the exact same type of block we did earlier, where we were dumping in item where we wanted to use username or password, right, as a value or whatever. But there's all these different ways that we can do this. So as you're doing this, you could think to yourself at any time in any one of these labs, I would use it like this. And then I would challenge you, go do it. You can do this professionally. There's nothing stopping you from introducing and using Ansible in your environment. Yeah, Bertrand, I appreciate you coming by. Hopefully you have a good day. Anybody that's got to leave, you guys are always welcome to come or go as you please. I always appreciate people stopping by and talking shop with me. You guys are also welcome to hang out down the Discord. That's always going to be free. Got a lot of, I tell you guys all the time, I'm the tip of the iceberg. I am not the best engineer in there. I'm not the best security architect. I'm not the best of any of those things, but I have a lot of really good people down in the Discord that do those things. Most of the people that have been there a while are professionals in some way in this. The Professional Linux Users Group, which is what I kind of represent, the Professional Linux Users Group is a group of people, we've been running that group for almost 10 years, and we've been running the Discord for almost 5, and our stated goal is to take you from doing this as a hobbyist and show you that you can do it as a professional. You guys can do this professionally. There's nothing stopping you. I'm not sitting here as some great intellect that's smarter than anybody else. I'm just a guy that does Linux because I enjoy it, and people happen to pay me good money to do it. And I think that they could pay you good money to do it too. And Jerry, hopefully this stuff's useful to you. Thanks for the follow over on the Twitch side. You guys get to see my dog Ranger whenever somebody follows. How's Ranger doing? Ranger is laying around with his toys out. He's got his toys out because we had our nieces and nephews over yesterday, and they were giving him his toys. He doesn't really chew on toys. He's had the same toys since he was a little dog. Yeah, Gronzo, you can absolutely do this, man. Don't let anybody, definitely don't let anybody tell you guys that you can't do this. This is system administration, system engineering is a very attainable thing. You can go get degrees, you can go get certs, but you do not necessarily need those things to get into this industry. You need to start doing this stuff, working on it, find people that are doing the same things that you want to do, and then just figure out how to prove to people that you can do it, because that's how, you get into engineering, is you have to convince somebody to let you come and work on their systems, right? So yeah. So you guys are welcome to hang out. We have projects always kind of going down in the Discord, and we try to meet up and talk shop. We try to do it once a week, but I haven't been able to the last 2 weeks. But this next Saturday, I'm prioritizing it so that we can get everybody together. And then we're gonna start planning something. So August will be our 10th anniversary, and 5 years for our Discord. So in August, I'm gonna be having a big. We're gonna do like a whole day. And we're going to have like all the different engineers and architects that I've known for a long time come and talk to you guys in like 1.5 hour blocks probably. And I'm going to make it kind of fun and challenging, kind of like if you guys have ever been to like a conference, and then you can like keep track of like where you went and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to do that. CNA or CNAP are not valuable anymore. If I saw, are you talking like CCNA or CNAP? I'm not sure what CNAP is. And I'm not sure CNA. I don't know what either of those are actually, technically. So, but I think you might have meant CCNA. I think CCNA is still pretty valuable. But I don't do, like, I got into this. I got my CCNA back in 2002. And I was still in the Army at the time. And I got out and I just didn't love networking, guys. I tried to love networking. I can do networking just fine. I just didn't love it. So then I kind of moved over into being like more of a server engineer and systems and platform and heavily into Linux, right? Linux storage, all that stuff. But I do a lot of networking because I work on high performance compute systems, and we have our back end networks and stuff. But I don't love it though. You know what I'm saying? Like I love the networking, or I love the Linux side of things rather. CCNA, yeah. I think CCNA and CCNP are still pretty valuable to get in though. In the industry. And if you want to be a Linux or if you want to be a network engineer, they're probably still the two most valuable to start for sure, I think. But I only ever did the CCNA, and then I never got far enough in to get the CCNP or any of that stuff. So yeah. All right. So we did our message of the day push. Let's go look at what's our next lab. This one gets people. And I think when I've shown this one before, I want to explain, I didn't write this one to trick anybody. This is absolutely one of the most useful things that I've found in the engineering world for the cybersecurity domains. For cybersecurity, I would definitely tell you, I think, so if you're doing cloud stuff, I'm a big fan of the AWS security cert. Both myself and Fisherman Guybro have that one. So Fisherman Guybro is one of our guys. He wrote our bot. Have you guys seen our little Discord bot? I know some of you guys have been around. Hey, how's it going, Sketlasa? I don't know how to say that, but hopefully that's not been messed up too much. These courses are all free. Everything here, if you guys go to Killer Coda, it's all free. There's nothing on Killer Coda that costs anything. But if you guys have been around or been in our Discord, the little bot here, little bot that welcomes you guys, and the little bot that you guys can ask anything you want to. Ask, is streaming fun? Right? The bot is actually, Fisherman Guybro wrote it. He's done a couple of little talks on how it works. Streaming process consuming. It acts as though it's a Unix admin. But it's done some pretty cool stuff. I asked it earlier today. I said, or it might have been last night, I forget. Look how much this is scrolling. There's so many of you guys in here, which is good, I think. I thought I asked it last night. Where's that? I thought I asked it in here. Maybe I did it over in Off Topic. Nope, I don't know. That was us in Cancun the other day, me and the wife. Complaints. Nope. Guys, I don't know where I did it. I thought I did it in general. I thought I had it tell me the benefits of using... Heck, I don't know. I guess I'm getting old. I don't remember where we did it. But anyways, this is a bot that he wrote, and he talks about it sometimes. Yeah, it'll try to answer you things that it can do. Otherwise, it'll just act like a salty old sysadmin. Yeah, it acts like a salty old sysadmin in some cases. So the bot can be kind of harsh. He toned it down. It used to be a jerk to people. I don't know how some people. I think some people probably left the server. How that bot used to talk to people, but oh. I just had everything crash on me. Hopefully my system comes back up, guys. Oh, no. I lost it all, guys. I lost it all. I don't know if this thing's still transmitting. I don't know what's going on. I still see my camera on, so I'm assuming something's still happening. But my whole screen just blacked across all my systems, so this is not optimal. Not optimal. I think I lost you guys. All right, well, we're going to see if this thing comes back or if I've lost my computer. Pretty sure I lost you guys.